Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and I think I'm going to change this Sonoff promotional video into this sort of like Sonoff update video, especially for this month, because there is not an awful lot that I can talk about the promotion. You can see most of them on the right hand side of the screen. Well, you can't see the whole thing, but everything is going to be included in the video description. And besides that, there are also a few smaller news and smaller updates, which I don't think it would be worth to have a separate video, so probably just going to club everything here. So if you look at the promotions, the one thing I would highlight is there are a few new ones that are starting in July 25th, so already, well, that's like 2 weeks ago. There are promotions on NSPanel Pro and also the iHost. So depending on how much you spend in an order, you can get 12 or 15% off. And there are a few others as well. So again, there are going to be affiliate links and all the details with the coupon code in the video description. So I think that's interesting, and probably an interesting side note that I was asked to do some integration. It's not Sonoff related, but then I was thinking that for that I would use Node-RED, and okay, so what sort of hardware should I choose? It's really difficult to buy Raspberry Pi nowadays. So I said, well, there is a Sonoff. It can, the software is already delivered. I don't even have to deal with installing Linux, and I can just install Node-RED with a few clicks. So I'm going to choose Sonoff iHost as the hardware, although it's not going to use any Sonoff devices. Well, not in the beginning, but well, there is an option to use additional Sonoff devices in your home as well. Moving on, what I wanted to mention is I just made a recent video on the eWeLink cast, and there is one new feature which was added, but again, I thought I'm just going to club it in here. So now there is a new cast app. So up until now, there was only like a website that you can load, but now there is an app, so it's easier to show it in full screen, but it's basically just I think it's just basically like an embedded website. But the good thing about this, it has a call function. So now if you dedicate, let's say, an iPad or a tablet for your smart screen, for your touch screen, you can call it. Just like if you have a Nest Hub from Google, then you can use Google Duo service or the Google Duo program to call your Nest Hub and then have voice conversation with your family. So yeah, I think it's a nice feature. I didn't use this on my Google one either. I mean, nowadays it's just easy to call someone on the phone. But again, if you have dedicated touch panels, maybe multiples around the room, you can use it as an intercom as well. And the rest of this is going to be, again, related to iHost and a little bit about the NSPanel Pro. And I will go into some of these in more detail in some follow-up videos, but there are a couple of things that I want to just mention it because, again, they are small things. So first of all, there has been a lot more, Dockers available. And let me just start with the most basic one, this Tile Cube Weather API. So this is a weather API that you can install, and then you need to create an account with the with the weather service and get the API key, and you have to put in the API key. It's really, a simple process. The whole installation guides you through the entire process. But the only thing it does so far is that when you have these cast screens, you can now enable a weather forecast. So for example, you can see here that this is the weather forecast tile, which is loaded by this service. So it doesn't really add anything to the scenes or triggers. It just basically is. So again, if you are not using this cast screen as a touch panel, this is not really going to give you anything. So that's why I thought it's not such a big deal and doesn't need a separate video. Also, on the other things, what I'm a little bit interested about this TTS API and this TTS integration, because now you can get iHost to say something, but this is a really early version. It doesn't really say anything yet. It just can play audio files, which are pre-recorded audio files. So it's not exactly the type of announcement service that you can, that I had in mind, what it can be used for. but they said that it's currently under development and they are probably going to work on it. So maybe in a couple of months we would have a few new features. Maybe you can expand the type of voices that you can do, and maybe there are going to be real text-to-speech functionality later on. I mean, the hardware is certainly capable of doing that, so I'm pretty sure that they would do something about that. I don't know, maybe in a couple of months. The other interesting addition is this MQTT to Cube Tasmota integration or Docker, and what it will let you do is integrate your Tasmota devices that you have around the house, so they would appear in your iHost and you can control them. And I tried to set it up and it doesn't really work for, I mean, you know, it runs and everything works, but then it doesn't find any devices to sync. And then I was reading up on this, and again, it is the first version, so they are only supporting certain devices like, you know, basic switch devices. And the one I have is, I think, an Blitzwolf SHP2, which is a smart plug, but it also has power metering. So maybe because of that power metering, it doesn't work yet, but you know, you install this and then you just, again, you have to go through a couple of steps of, you know, setting it up and getting the token. And then you just enable this sync device, and it should sync any devices that it finds automatically. But it didn't add anything for me. So again, probably it's not compatible with the device I have at home. And then again, I just have to wait for a newer version for this to become available. So yeah, it's good, it's coming, but I didn't find this very useful just at the moment. The other thing the other thing I looked at, and this is something that I want to make a separate video on, is this parallel sync, because that lets you sync your devices that are on the NSPanel Pro to be available in the iHost. So if you look at this one, yeah, that's my screen. Let me bring you a little bit closer so you can see my NSPanel Pro here. And if I do that, actually, let me just change the view. Okay, so what you can see here, reflection. So there is this temp sensor here and there is a button. So if I click this button, then it shows that it's clicked. So this information is definitely coming from the NSPanel Pro. And now if I come here, then you can see the new button and the it's only the new button which came through. So if I double click, then we should see, well, definitely I can see the double click on the NSPanel Pro, but let me just go into that. Again, I want to talk about this a little bit more in detail, so I will do that in a separate video. And I think it's interesting, but again, maybe it's again some edge scenario, because if you want to automate a single home, I think it would make more sense to use a single Zigbee network, so have the iHost as the Zigbee coordinator. So in that case, I wouldn't link any devices to the NSPanel Pro unless you have a topology where the NSPanel Pro is so far away that you can sync the devices together. So I mean, you can't create them in a single network. Or maybe you can have the NSPanel Pro in a different location and then just bring all these devices together with the iHost, which, I mean, physically wouldn't be possible because they are too far away. So again, I feel that these are like edge cases and may not, you know, work for everyone. But yeah, so the functionality is available. It is here. Again, it doesn't support all devices. So yeah, so I think it managed to sync my button, but not the temperature sensor. So again, first version, probably there is going to be some enhanced version coming or out, some updates in the future. But yeah, that's one other area eWeLink is going. And the other thing I also want to test is this tail scale, because again, that would allow me to control my iHost devices over the eWeLink app, or so over an application, which is again is something that I think most people would be looking for, because yeah, you most probably want to control your devices whilst you are not at home. And up until now, with all the the cloud enabled things, it was all possible, but for the iHost so far everything was local, the control as well. So as you can see, there are a couple of new stuff, and probably there's a couple of new stuff coming as well. The one thing that I, again, didn't test yet is this Matter Bridge integration. Again, this is pilot feature, so probably this is the one which would be working the least, but I use this Zigbee to Cube as well, and that seems to be working again for some devices, and that is promising to sync your iHost devices to a Matter Bridge. So again, let's assume that you have, well, for example, you have an iHost and you have a couple of Zigbee sensors, and then now you can just link them to the iHost and then just share them across the Matter network. So maybe this is not the best example, because let's say if you have like an Amazon Alexa device or a Nest Hub, some of them already have a Zigbee sensor, so you wouldn't need an iHost. But again, these are like these edge scenarios that maybe for some reason you are using some odd Sonoff devices that otherwise wouldn't be available in Matter. So now what you can do is you can just sync them to the iHost, let's say, I don't know, an iFan, something like that. And then you can bring them over to, let's say, your Apple HomeKit using this integration. Again, I don't think it's going to work for all the devices. Pilot feature probably will only support some limited functionality at the moment. But again, maybe this is all you need for the time being. And probably the last that I wanted to mention is that I am playing around with Node-RED a little bit more on the iHost, because I specifically want to explore this option, how you can create sort of virtual devices and control them from Node-RED. And so far I made some progress. While some of the things are really good, some of the things are less good. For example, this test sensor. But anyway, what I managed to do is I was able to implement a sunrise sunset timer in Node-RED and then pass this information over to the iHost as a virtual device, which is this one. So you can set up simple scenes in order to, turn on lights, when the sunset comes, because, normally you don't have an option to set something on sunset, only just a specific time. And it's working now for simple devices like, switches, which is, good enough. But I want to make sure that I can expand this whole functionality to other devices as well. So for example, I can pass temperature information or other inputs from Node-RED into the iHost, because I think it would be easier if you can just create the triggers in Node-RED and then you build the logic in iHost, because the scenes itself are quite powerful as well and self-explanatory. So there is no reason to control them directly from the Node-RED. I think if you can control them from the iHost interface, from these scenes, it would be easier to modify them later on. It's probably a little bit easier to overview here than in Node-RED. But again, if you're used to Node-RED, maybe you prefer that interface and then not use this one. But again, both of them are available. You can decide which one you like better. So I think this would be the update for the time being, and for some of the things that I mentioned here, I will be covering in a separate video, so stay tuned for that. I will try to leave links to all of these in the video description. If I forget something, just leave me a comment below and I would add. And of course, I will leave the links for the promotions in the video description as well, as I mentioned before. But that will be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.